Faster Fluency Conversation Club, your work horror story. Welcome to the Faster Fluency Conversation Club podcast by Business English with Christina. The Faster Fluency Conversation Club takes place on Zoom and is a way for you to improve your fluency and confidence in English by talking about real-world topics. We meet for 1 hour every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, and we would love you to join us. If you want to practice your English, become more confident, and meet people just like you from all around the world, and have guidance from my expert teachers and me, just click the link in the show notes. Our podcast listeners receive a 50% discount on the first month of membership with the discount code FFCC50. Come and join us today. Hi, everybody. Christina here with the Faster Fluency Conversation Club podcast. And today I'm here with Matthew. Matthew, how's it going today?
Oh, I'm just trying to think of my work horror stories and which one I should tell you.
Which one should I pick? Oh, there are so many of them.
Yeah, but otherwise doing good.
Good. I hope your work horror story is nothing from working with Business English with Christina.
Not at all. No.
Yeah, no. Yeah. So today we're going to talk about work horror stories because I think, even if you love your job or you work in a good company or you have a great boss and all of that stuff, we've all experienced just like awful moments at work. And I think there's no shame in sharing those because it happens to everyone. And some of them you're just like, some of them are funny. And sometimes you're just like, oh my goodness, that really happened. But do you have a work horror story that you would like to share with us?
Well, I'll tell you it's nothing really terrible happened here, but it's kind of funny. It's how I fell into teaching, actually.
Okay. Yeah.
And so, I always had this kind of dream to live in Japan. And I was a manager of a business at the time. But people were telling me, oh, you should become an English teacher. And I was like, no, I'm not doing
I don't want to do that.
And I have no patience for this and I'm not interested in that. And my sole purpose at the time was just business. And I enjoyed being a manager and helping people that way. But anyway, I got convinced. They're like, well, if you just get a visa, then you can go to the country and you can quit.
Okay, you're like,
find a job
as a manager.
As a manager in Tokyo or wherever. I was like, oh, that's a brilliant idea. I really like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I got there to Japan, started teaching, and I liked it actually. Right. So I continued doing it. And then my boss came to me one day and she's like, we think you would be really good at teaching kids. Oh. And I was like, I don't think so.
And you're like, I don't think so. No.
Like, no, we think you will. And I was like, I don't even know who kids are. I'm like 24 years old.
I'm a kid. What are you talking about?
Are, around my age, a little bit younger, but they're, teenagers at the youngest. It was like, I just finished university a few years ago. I was like, I don't know any kids. I had zero. I have no experience with kids. They're like, yeah, well, we think you'll like it.
You're like, okay, I get the point. I have no choice.
Right. And actually, so it's funny. This is just a funny story, but my very first day teaching kids, I was nervous. I don't know why, but 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds.
I don't know. When you're in a room with 33-year-olds, that's a scary situation.
Yeah. And so, sure. They were like pulling my hair and telling me I had a big nose. Yeah. And, how brutal kids can be.
Exactly.
But it's funny how it worked out. Actually, I taught kids predominantly for a while there. Okay, and they were fun. And I learned a lot from kids on just like how to like kind of just let loose, have fun. And
brutal honesty.
Brutal honesty, right. But, during at the time, I was just like, oh my God, what am I doing with my life? But it's funny how things turn out 16 some later. Here I am still teaching kids. I don't really work with kids anymore, but I learned a lot.
Yeah. And now it's like you've kind of come back to, because you're doing business English. So it's kind of like bringing in the manager stuff and the English teaching stuff. So maybe it's like the best of both worlds now.
It all came full circle. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's it.
But at the time I was like, what am I doing? Why am I here?
What am I doing? I've been there, done that as well. I've taught kids as well in schools in France. And it's the same. I'm just like, this is just not, it's like, I cannot do this for more than 1 year. Oh my goodness. And I think it's a really difficult job teaching kids. I feel like
It
that's a
is.
whole other pedagogy from teaching adults. And I'm just like,
It
I
drains
can't
you
do it.
too. I mean, just
Yeah.
they're energy suckers.
Yeah, exactly. Just because they have so much energy and you're just like, I
Yes.
just want to go home and
Yes.
take a nap now.
No, I was exhausted every day. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
exhausted.
Oh
Yes,
no.
yes. How
Yeah.
about you? What's your do you have any
My work horror
horror
story.
stories?
Yeah, and actually, in talking with, because I'm in like Facebook groups with like other English teachers and things like that. And I shared this on LinkedIn as well, because I did think it was because someone else, another English teacher, had told her story about something similar. And I was like, oh, this happened to me as well. And I was working for a company. It's a very big company. So, you would think big company, solid finances and things like that. And then it's just like one month they were late, like a week late paying the teachers. And then it was 2 weeks late. And then it was like a month late. And we kept like saying, when are we going to get paid? And they just kept saying like, oh, we just have to sort out this one thing, like all sorts of excuses. And I think it was like, we ended up going like, oh, like 3 months or something without getting paid.
Three
And
months.
it was,
Wow.
yeah. And you're kind of like, well, why didn't you just quit? Because, I don't know. It's kind of a stupid reasoning, but you're like, well, I've got this thing and I know I'm going to have the work. And at some point they are going to pay me. And that just maybe felt easier than like actually going out and looking for another job and you don't know what you're going to find and all of that.
I think as a teacher too, you get really attached to the people you work
Yeah,
with and you want to help them out, right?
yeah,
And so I think
exactly.
that's part of it as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like the people in the people that were running the office were really nice and they were very sympathetic to the teachers, but it was like, the head management up in the headquarters somewhere, which was kind of directing the finances or something like that. And so they would like, our direct managers were very sympathetic, but they were just not getting any support from headquarters. And in the end, like we learned that they were like, well, actually the teacher pay, it's kind of it's in the same category as the purchasing for like the pens and the Post-its. And so whenever we order new office supplies, we'll be able to pay you. It was, I don't remember the
Wow.
details exactly, but it was something.
What?
And we were like, what?
That makes no sense.
And it makes no sense. So I don't even know if that was true. I don't know. All I know is that we didn't get paid for a long time. Something like half of the teachers ended up quitting, understandably so. And it was just like an awful mess. And I was like, this is like a big company. You would think
Mm.
they would not have this kind of situation, but whatever.
I've heard those horror stories. Actually, that company that I was just talking about,
Yeah,
I was working with them at a 1 year contract. My
yeah,
year was up in August
yeah,
and things weren't looking so good for the company. Some of the teachers who had been around for several years, they're like, if I were you, I would
yeah.
look for a new job. And
Mm.
okay. I was
Yeah.
like, they seem to know, and things were looking kind of sketchy. And so I
Mm.
did. And this was in August. So I got a new job. Then I re-signed my contract with that company. And then 2 months later, in October, that company went bankrupt.
So that, yeah.
And teachers were not paid. They never got paid.
Oh,
And some of
yeah.
them were living in housing provided by the
Mm.
company.
Right.
And like over the half of the people I work with, yep, they had to go back home to their home countries and
Oh,
their
right.
teaching
Yeah.
year was over.
Yeah.
And it's yeah, I just feel lucky. But I
Yeah.
hear those kinds of stories a lot. I don't know why, especially with schools.
I don't know what it is about language schools, but there's a lot of
Yeah.
horror stories out there. But I mean, there's a lot of good ones as well. But and maybe it's just we know those stories because those are
Yes, we're in it.
in
Yeah.
that industry. So we talk to, our colleagues in the broad sense of the term, but I'm sure every industry has. And I'm sure like for the members of FFCC, I'm sure you've got some horror stories either from your company or from your industry that you might
Yes.
be able to share with us. And there's one other story
Sure.
that I wanted to share, but it didn't happen to me, but it happened to a client that I had started working with. And because it involves English and they were working. So it was a French company and they were working with a Scottish supplier, I think it was. And of course, the Scottish accent can be quite difficult to
Yes.
understand. Like even for us Americans, it sometimes depending
Yes.
on the accent, the Scottish accent, it can be difficult. So anyway, what happened was they were having a meeting with their Scottish supplier, very difficult to understand. I think they wanted to not ask for clarification all the time. So they were just saying, okay, yes, yes, okay, yes. And then a couple of weeks later, the client, they told me, they said, we got a call from the supplier and he said, I'm at the airport. Is somebody going to come pick
Oh,
me up?
wow.
And they were like, we didn't realize that you were coming to visit us, because they didn't
You-
understand. And now I'm like, why didn't anyone confirm these kind of details by email or something? I don't know how that happened, but in the end, it ended up, they didn't understand that he was going to come and
Yeah.
visit. And then he showed up.
Well, that's the thing, I always tell students, like, they're like, well, I want to always ask to make sure. And it's
Yeah,
like, well, it's better that you ask than get it wrong and you keep
exactly.
maybe an important client waiting at the airport for hours or whatever it
Exactly. Or
was.
you
And
not planning for them, and yeah, or
yeah,
get it, send an email, get it in writing.
send an
Say,
email
just to
is the
confirm, this is what I understood from our meeting.
right.
Did I miss any important details? Yeah, because you
Yeah.
don't want that to happen. But
Oh, no,
I
no,
do want to
no.
specify, this was a client that happened before I started working with them. They were like, oh no, this happened to us last year. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yes.
So just for clarification there, but I was like, that is the perfect story of why it's important to make sure you understand. So I think we can
Yeah.
close with that.
Oh, I'm looking forward to hearing everybody's work horror stories this week in the
This
club.
is
I
going to be
think
a
it'll
fun
be
week.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. All right, Matthew. Well, thanks a lot, and talk to you soon.
All right. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening again this week. As a bonus for our listeners, we now offer the transcript of this episode for free, so you can read after listening. Our goal is to help you improve all aspects of your English. And when you become a member of the Faster Fluency Conversation Club, each week you also get exercises on grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, and more, directly connected to the topic of the conversation each week. In addition to the daily speaking practice in the club, you'll also make friends around the world with professionals just like you, so you have fun learning and remember what you learned better. And because you listen to this podcast, you get a 50% discount on your first month of membership. Just use the code FFCC50. And if you'd like to join the club, the link for more details is in the show notes for this podcast. We hope to see you in the club.